Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, and Dr. Cannon, minutes.
The minutes of our last meeting are included in your folder, and if there is no discussion, we will move to adopt those, approve those.
All right.
Motion. Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And on the public comments? No public comments today?
The folks from Rock Hill are here in case y'all have questions.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on to the consent agenda, we do need to pull items 1 and 2 for some clarifications, but if I can get a motion to approve 3 and 4.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Frank, would you like to go ahead and present 1 and 2?
Yes, thank you. So, item number 1 was a $3,241,475 construction contract award to Carolina Civil Works. This is for work in the at the Porter's Neck Market Street intersection, very busy intersection. This is access to Edgewater Club, Figure 8 Island, and then Market Street. You've got Lowe's over here. We identified sewer insufficiencies back in 2021. This is a project to replace manholes, relocate these force mains out of Porter's Neck Road, reconfigure the gravity network here, and put a CIPP cured in place liner in the existing 18-inch pipe. So this is all run through the Finance Committee and was recommended for the consent agenda. Since that time, we've been unable to finalize easements. There are 2 easement areas needed along Market Street. Just a portion up here where the gravity line adjustments will be made, and along this area here where we'll be relocating some force mains outside of Porter's Neck Road. Yesterday, we were able to come to a verbal agreement with both the Walgreens and the underlying property owner. The Walgreens leases this space. We originally had an agreement from the property owner. They wanted to confirm that Walgreens was okay with the easements. We have verbal agreement on that, but the final document has not been executed or recorded. So we just wanted a clarification and to revise the recommended action to, upon recording of all necessary real estate documents, authorize the executive director to award the contract.
Go ahead, Mr. Powell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Frank, I know in the discussion also, something that caught my ear was the right turn lane coming down Market Street, heading north on Market Street onto Porter's Neck. That will necessarily be closed down for a considerable amount of time while this work is being done. I just wanted to highlight it for those people in the public who are here or listening. That's, could you review that part of it?
So back a little over a year ago in the right turn lane, right here in the curb line, we had a sinkhole that formed. The gravity sewer in that area is over 20 feet deep, and it was undermining the soils, and the road was caving in. So we were able to get in there and do a trenchless patch on the inside of that sewer line by entering the manhole, installing a fiberglass sleeve, and then blowing that up and letting it cure. Since that time, we've done a condition assessment on this part of the gravity system, and much of this gravity line. Decided we needed to make some improvements there. There will be closure of this road for up to an 8-week period from this access driveway through this access driveway to the corner here. Both of these roads will not be allowed to be closed at the same time. They'll be right in, always access to one of those roads. And then we'll have 1-lane closure on this Porter's Neck Road for up to 3 days. The total project is expected to last 3 months, and it's expected there'll be 8 weeks of overnight work included during that time.
When is the start date on this?
The start date is going to be And about, I'm going to say we're going to actually get the notice to proceed out on this within 3 weeks.
Right, so by the end of January, early February.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, and the next item that I have is a corresponding consultant phase services or construction phase services award. McKim & Creed designed these improvements, and this is for construction administration and construction inspection services during the construction period in the amount of $131,400. There's no sense in authorizing this unless you authorize the construction project. So the recommended action for this item has also been revised to, upon obtaining all real estate documents for the project, authorize the executive director to execute the amendment.
We need a vote on the first one too. We have.
So we need a motion and a second on the first action item.
I move the first.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any additional questions on item number 2? Okay, a motion and a second then.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thanks, Frank. Okay, that's it for the consent agenda. Moving on to new business, administrative reports with the attorney's report.
I do not have anything to that.
Moving on to executive director.
So under the executive director's report, we have the key indicators reports, we have the safety report, the environmental report, and the strategic plan update. I would ask for those first 4 items if there are any questions that we might answer.
Thank you. Ken, just a quick note so I can continue to educate myself. On the key indicator report on page 64 and 65, it's the north side and south side wastewater treatment flows. The north side is trending down and the south side is trending up. Just a matter of the amount of work that's been done to control the I&I, the infiltration. It seems counterintuitive that the two ought to work in tandem, because we live in the same geographic area. Maybe-
When we asked Mr. Vandenheim to come forward and offer some thoughts.
Thank you.
Good morning. Very good observation, Commissioner Zappel. Normally, the north side flow tends to be higher than the south side flow. We do have the ability in our system to divert flow, release some flow from north side to south side and vice versa. Back in October, we had to do some work at one of our pump stations over at Bradley Creek that normally sends flow to north side. As a result of that work, we had to divert some flow to south side. That work was completed last week, and the flow has been diverted as of Monday back to north side.
Great. Thanks, Carl. Appreciate it. Thank you. That was all.
So on page 11, just the new meter installations were still really low. Is that backlogs? Anything changed? Any information on that?
Well, we have a number of meter replacements that were where a meter has failed at an existing location that we put on hold because we've yet to acquire the 1,400 plus advanced meters. In hearing none, I would like to briefly go over item number 5, which is the policy analysis for the extension of services to existing neighborhoods. So as you may recall, on November 9th, we had visitors from the Rock Hill community, many of which are here today. They came and expressed concerns around PFAS groundwater contamination. And some of those citizens also expressed concerns around failing private well and septic, separate from the PFAS contamination issue. Last year, November 2021, Secretary Advisor extended the protections of the consent order to New Hanover County. That created a sequence of events where private well owners would be notified by Chemours of the opportunity to have their private wells tested for contamination. And that is an ongoing event, and some private well owners are getting notices back from Chemours that contamination has been discovered in their private wells. This is an overlapping policy issue. So when we go back and look at it, there's two policy issues that we look at. One is the traditional challenge of extending water and sewer services to existing communities that do not have them. And then layered over that is this new condition of contamination being discovered, PFAS contamination. So in looking at those two policy areas, we first look back and see what prior boards had to say. In 2013, after an extensive process, this board adopted a comprehensive growth policy that looked at all types of growth, including consolidation, wholesale bulk sales, growth from development, and the extension of infrastructure to existing communities. That growth policy speaks to a petition process where communities would come forward and petition for extension, and there would be an analysis of that petition with costs. And at the time, in 2013, our board had some policy tools. In particular, it had a debt recovery allowance, a theoretical amount of money that this organization could bring to solve such problems without raising rates on existing customers. This policy was used in the Marquee Hills and Heritage Park projects. 2015, we saw some changes in general statutes. Particularly, this organization and other authorities lost the ability to require connection. That was a very important part of the original policy. We also changed the way we calculated system development charges. And that and changes in our financial policies between 2013 and now have impacted the way we might be able to calculate a debt recovery allowance. So the way we read the policy now, we don't believe it can be enforced as written. Now, layered on top of that is this unusual situation with Chemours. The consent order offers 3 remedies to private well owners who have been notified that there's contamination in their well. If it is Gen X, above 10 parts per trillion, then there is a process that evaluates first the connection to public water supply, if available. And there's a business case analysis completed, and if the business case requires connection, then Chemours begins a connection process on behalf of the customer. And the customer then would also receive $75 a month for 20 years to pay for a water bill. If it's not Gen X, but one of 11 other PFASs identified in the consent order, then there's 2 other remedies. If any of those 11 others are above 10, then the property owner is offered 3 under-the-sink RO units. If in the opinion of Chemours, it is more cost-effective to connect that person to the water system, then they may do it, but that decision lies with Chemours. Solution number 3 is if any of 12 include, the 11 PFAS that are part of the consent order plus Gen X, if they all add up to 70 or more, then again, the property owner is offered 3 under the sink RO units. And they may be connected to water supply if it's more cost effective to do that. In those last 2 solutions, the property owner is not offered the option of having their water bill covered. We are also finding a 4th case. In this testing, there are PFAS that are showing up that are not part of the 12 covered under the consent order. And there are PFAS results that fall below either 10 or 70. There are no solutions offered in the consent order in that case. So our recommendation is to take, there's a gap, therefore, for county private well owners who have a contamination issue. There's a policy gap that is not covered by the consent order. Our recommendation is to take the growth policy that this board adopted in 2013, return it to the Long Range Planning Committee and the Finance Committee, and look at ways to improve that growth policy in this new environment. And we can ask in committee certain questions. How might we recalculate the debt recovery allowance, for example? And if we can't, what might be a solution going forward? How might we address, if we can at all, this gap created by the consent order? We can ask and answer those questions in committee. So that's our recommendation. Questions?
Ken, I think thanks for that analysis of that. What's really important to put in the minds of the entire board here and the community is the consent order was written in 2018
Adopted
and 19, that our ability, the technological ability of detection has increased tremendously, plus our understanding of PFAS has changed dramatically, and we understand a whole lot more now than we did at that time. So limiting, for instance, one of your points, the Schedule C to 11 different PFAS and what their impacts are, our understanding of that on a number of different levels has really grown a lot. Just giving support to your thought that we need to take a look at our own growth policy and the issues surrounding that, including the consent order. Because somewhere in there, there's going to, I believe, need to be a request to the DEQ or to the legal community to reopen that consent order or create a separate consent order that would include the increased knowledge and experience we now have with all the PFAS.
Other questions or thoughts?
So just for clarity, if I live in Rock Hill and my water was contaminated through no fault of my own, Chemours did it, basically. And I want the government to cover the cost of me getting hooked up to clean water. Can I ask this board to do that, or do we have that authority, or do I need to go, does the state government need to work with Chemours to make that happen, if it's possible?
Under your 2013 growth policy, that policy imagined multiple sources of potential funding to provide water or sewer to a community that is existing and doesn't have it. And that could include funding from this board. The way that policy was enacted in the past was, in Heritage Park, for example, the authority paid for the water line extension. What's different today is property owners were required to connect and pay SDCs, for example.
Which are pretty expensive.
The policy allows for the boards to create a solution. But there is embedded in that policy a very difficult question. How much existing ratepayer funds should be dedicated to extending to existing communities? Prior boards left that decision to future boards on a case-by-case basis. But they also assumed that there would be a debt recovery allowance, which we can no longer provide, at least not as it was written. And it assumed that this body could require connection. So the policy as written, we can't offer it up as a solution.
So it's obviously that the 2013 growth policy needs to be revised, and that should happen in short order. I guess my question, to the board and for the community to understand, is what's our time frame from if it's going back to long range committee and finance committee to get back to the authority board to ultimately make a decision on updating that policy?
Right. I think it really depends. We're going to bring, if this board chooses to remand the policy back to committee, which is our recommendation, and we'd ask for that in the form of a motion. Then we would, as staff, work as diligently as possible to work through the policy issue. But we can't predict where that might land. Prior boards had 2 dedicated work sessions over a year. And there was a number of discussions in the prior year. It essentially took 2 years to create the existing growth policy. We don't predict it'll take that long, but there are difficult policy questions to answer. We will be diligent as staff and move it as fast as the policy analysis allows.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mr. Markle.
To me, it seems like we're using Chemours as the default for the conversation. When Market Hills and Heritage Park were addressed, it was around public health. You had wells and septics that were failing, and water running into bodies of water that would cause public health concerns for many. Much like Chemours and PFAS, another public health concern. And so the county took the lead in doing that and partnered with CFPUA. We found some grant dollars. I think it was over $20 million in the end. But the concern was public health. I sent out a newsletter showing dots of all the wells and septic systems that had failed in those areas, and it was numerous. And much like Chemours and PFAS, we have another public health concern. The overall goal of the county, as we're talking with our county manager and our planning director, is not just Chemours and PFAS and just using that as a stopgap and say we're not going to do anything until the state decides whatever. But we're also looking at our growth. And you have business leaders who are asking the question, where is growth going to happen in the county? And in my opinion, this authority needs to be more proactive in looking at growth patterns. And we know that Castlehane in the northern part of the county is where the growth is going to take place, because that's where the vacant land is in the county. So if you know these things, it'd be wise to prepare and start looking at how we put infrastructure in the ground to assist. At the same time, finding ways to piggyback on existing infrastructure to serve communities that would benefit from having water and sewer. We just had a planning item at our meeting Monday night where a new developer is going into an area off of Castlehane Road, Gordon Road, Division Drive area, and they're going to run water and sewer in there, and maybe 10 of the homes on that road will have the ability to tap into water and sewer, and I think they're going to take advantage of that. Those are the kind of growth things I think we need to be looking at. And just like the county doesn't do roads, we can also have a neighborhood petition, and if 75% of the folks say we want to have our road fixed, then we can bill them from a tax standpoint and upfront the money to pay for those roads to be fixed. So I'm looking at ways that we can think outside the box, and the county is here to help. And we can bring resources to bear as well, but I don't want us to hide around bureaucracy and say we're waiting on the EPA or the state or DEQ to decide something when you've got a partner here that partnered again back then. And I can tell you that I took the lead on that in 2011. So I'm not sure how many folks are on this board now that were on the board back then, but it was a really big deal, for our community. And the folks there, some didn't want to pay, but for the most part, everyone was very pleased to have access to quality water, but also get rid of the septic systems as well. And when you look at counties like Brunswick County, as I mentioned before, I've got a good friend who's bought a brand new home in a brand new community. It amazes me that they're not forward thinking. So you got these brand new homes that have well and septic. I could imagine buying a brand new $400,000 home and having a well and a septic tank. I can't plant trees in my yard. So for us, from a county standpoint, we're looking at growth. We're about to look at updating our comprehensive land use plan. And what does that mean going forward? We're partnering already to bring water and sewer on Sidbury Road because we know growth is going to take place there. So again, if you know things are coming, the best thing you can do is be proactive as opposed to not. I know there was a lot of concern when Mayfair was built and the city wasn't proactive and DOT wasn't proactive in putting a road in, so you had a bunch of congestion. You know these things are coming. So we really need to be thinking about real growth. And my thing is, you know, if you build it, they will come. When I first ran for office in 2008, we talked about a synthetic tip going up Castlehane Road to help spur development because we knew it was going to happen there. And again, we haven't really done those things because I think we've been more proactive at fixing stuff as opposed to looking at growth. But we're the second smallest county in the state, one of the fastest growing counties in the state, and eventually will be built out, but that area in that corridor is where growth is taking place.
In the interest of time, there's a lot that we could additionally share. Commissioner Barfield's brings forward a very important point. The county manager is already assigned staff to be part of this process. If this board chooses to remand the policy back, they will be at the meeting and carrying information back. We had a meeting with key county staff to talk about this and how we might look to Marquis Hills and Heritage Park as guidance to addressing the Rock Hill community issue and others. And then finally, you may recall last year at this time, we submitted 2 grant applications in partnership with the county for full ARPA funding to address failed septic systems. One of those communities, the Oakley community, is actually embedded in Rock Hill. So about 1/4 of the Rock Hill community, we have a grant application in. We didn't get the grant in the summer. We resubmitted with new information, in particular the PFAS contamination, and we should find out in February if the grant is awarded. So we are implementing pieces of the policy that exist. The policy, for example, suggests that we should seek grant opportunities where possible to address these issues. Remanding this back to the committee will allow the committee members to have conversations about Rock Hill and how to address the problem, as well as how to apply solutions to others coming forward. And it's the fastest path that we can think of as staff to try to reach a resolution to the question.
Go ahead, Commissioner Zappa.
Thank you. Piggybacking on Commissioner Barfield's thoughts, the health department, again, was the key to the Marquis Hills issue back then. I hope that as a county gets looped in, and thank you, Ken, for getting them looped in, our staff, that we can bring members or a member from the health department in initially so they're part of the conversation right from the get-go, because they are going to be an important lever in getting action anywhere we go. And this is a health urgency issue. So if you could add that in the conversation, I know that from this, both Commissioner Barfield and myself will approach County Manager Coudray to encourage that we get members of the health department or a member to sit in on this so they don't have to do catch-up a month from now. Also, sometimes, even though it's somewhat arbitrary, if this board would consider the idea of putting a deadline for action, I think that might send a message to the community, whether that be March 1st, because I know that we have a certain amount of committee work that needs to go through and staff work, but in the back of my mind, and a great many of the people sitting in this audience right now, is, oh my stars, are we looking at 6 months, a year? It just seems like it's endless. If there's a way that we could put, we can always move that date, but to give us a deadline of when we expect our work to be done or to be substantially done, I think would be really helpful.
I would add that the health department was at the table in this discussion. And we will ask the manager's office if he would ensure that a representative is part of the committee meetings.
Mr. Briggs?
Madam Chair, has anyone been in the Rockville area to test their wells for PFAS contamination?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yes.
and they've got letters back.
And as recently as last week, we received the spreadsheet data for New Hanover County. We're trying to understand what are the overall county impacts. So as of this month, the 5th of this month, we had the testing data for the county under the process required by the consent order. But that information, I looked at it this morning, it's over 100,000 lines of data in a spreadsheet. And it's a very difficult process to pull that apart and understand relevant implications. We're going to continue to do that so we can inform the discussion.
The people whose wells have indicated they have PFAS contamination, are they getting the assistance they need from Chemours? Or are they getting fresh and clean drinking water, or is there still?
No, not all. No.
Is there something? I know it's not, it wouldn't be convenient, but could we do something like a water station out in that area that would at least give access to clean potable water that they could pick up?
So you may recall that we do have 2 water stations, one of which we had some freeze damage, and we're putting those stations back into service at 2 parks. We would be glad as staff to investigate the concept of creating and placing others, and we can include that in the committee discussions.
Well, that would seem to be a fairly quick, low-cost Band-Aid to at least provide drinking water. Because it's an involved process to get clean ground out. So that's going to take.
We need to think about that. I'm not suggesting that that's inappropriate. It sounds like a very reasonable solution. But we have contamination, PFAS contamination across the county. So then we need to think about what is the process of setting up multiple stations and what are the ramifications of that. But we'll certainly take that back. We had not considered that in the solution set. That's a good idea to take back and consider.
And all of the contaminations in non-water and non-sewer areas of the county.
It is. Although this community, by happenstance, does happen to have public water in parts of it. And when the question came, is Chemours addressing the community's concerns? To the extent that we can understand that, the answer is yes, but under the constraints of the consent order. So if they are qualifying under one of those 3 scenarios, they would get bottled water until a permanent solution is offered. But if their test results come back with PFAS and it's below 1070, or it's a PFAS that's not covered by the consent order, then the consent order offers no solution. That's the gap.
Just want to reiterate, my thoughts are really global about the whole county. We partnered with Habitat several years ago and CFPUA to put water and sewer for a new community off of Gordon Road, Daniel Boone Trail, I believe. And I think we gave 130, 140 grand to help with that. At the same time, you got one street over, there's no water and sewer. One street over, there's no water and sewer. And my goal, again, from a comprehensive standpoint, is to look at all these pockets and donut holes and figure out how do we have a plan to cover the whole area. Because there's just so many bits and pieces where some do, some don't, and you're right by water, but you can't get to it. And those, I'm not sure how we had that plan of growth in the beginning, but we need to figure out how we fill in the hole, so to speak, is my goal.
So that's a good segue. So I think we have a proposal on the table to remand the growth policy back to the long-range planning committee. So I'd like a motion and a second to vote on that.
Will
And
that,
so-
one bit of discussion, will that include the proposal for some short-term
Yes.
fresh drinking supply?
Yeah, we can take that as a separate item.
And
Second.
also thinking, and this, I guess, just to be, so that we can begin looking at it, could we supply and undersink reverse osmosis and for a charge that would be, that we might be able to finance over a period of time for these residents in, that they can't get the help from Comores.
We need to take that question back and explore the legal foundation of our ability to do that.
Well, and that's why I'm bringing it up,
Yeah.
so we can begin to maybe look at that.
Yes.
And to see whether there's things that we can do other than extending water lines and sewer lines out there that would bring a little bit quicker relief.
We will take that back and investigate.
As part of discussion as well, do we want to put a goal date for action attached to this motion?
Yes.
That's consensus.
Long-range planning is when?
Last Thursday in the month.
Do we,
I don't think March is feasible.
To come up with a new growth policy, is that what we're talking about?
Or revamp it.
yes. I assume that's what.
It's amending existing growth policy.
Yeah, Larry, I hear what you're saying, and I know that it's a larger, it's going to take some time to do it, but maybe to come, when we would report back to this board the actions from the long-range planning, and I'm assuming finance as well, because nothing makes sense without some sort of, money behind it, or, some sort of idea. So if we could, maybe by the next meeting, the time that we meet here, it would be the February meeting of this board, that we would have at least reports back on long-range planning and finance. That would give us a path. Larry, I'm absolutely understand what you're saying. And no, we cannot give a whole new growth policy within a 30-day period. That's not going to happen. But at least we can hold ourselves accountable to move this discussion forward at the two key committees to bring back to this, the full board by the next month's meeting. I think that sends an appropriate message.
So let's plan on at every board meeting having an update of what we've done within the past month. I think it's important to note that changing the growth policy, or whatever we do with that, is not holding up our current discussions around the Rock Hill community and those concerns. So they are happening both at the same time. We're not going to wait on the policy to figure out because we are actively working on that. Is that a correct statement?
Well, the original construction of the growth policy didn't anticipate where we are today with PFAS and what have you. And we didn't do it in 30 or 40 or 60 or 90 or 120 days,
Yes.
2 years and maybe. So, at long-range planning, which I sit on along with other learned people here at the table, we will drill down and not just gloss over it, make some recommendations about it.
Put together a report similar to consolidation report.
Yep.
It's just 5 things happening at one time. And you gotta, this is very detailed and this has been put together, but they give you a rough summary that you're showing progress on every factor that's happening that everybody can understand.
Sounds like we're making this a high priority, and it's gonna take a lot of staff time, I think we're in agreement on that.
we need to explore that in long-range planning, the first meeting. And if we need additional resources, we'll let the long-range planning committee know by February. The growth policy did have an outside facilitator. I'm not certain whether one is necessary this time or not.
Okay, so I would like a motion to remand the policy back to committee.
We have the
motion.
Oh, we have,
Go ahead.
you made the motion?
I said
In a
it.
second? Okay, any more discussion on the item? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you all.
And do we have a way to keep the residents informed?
I think we do.
We do.
Ball says yes.
I would note that we have been approached by multiple communities on the topic. That's why we suggested tackling this at the policy level.
Right.
While at the same time, the chair points out correctly, we are continuing to have conversations with Rock Hill to look for a solution particular to that community. A couple of other items in my executive director report. The first is we will be participating, to my knowledge, the first time in the parade celebrating the life of Martin Luther King Jr. on Monday. We have a parade entrance and we have a small number of staff who will be walking in the parade. If there is an interest among board members to participate, please feel free to join us. We are meeting at 9 a.m. on Monday, January 16th at the Cape Fear Community College parking lot. I'll send more detailed information in an email after this meeting. The other bit of...
And I think you said we had a nice new dump truck that's going to be in the parade.
Yes, we do.
If you want to walk next to the dump truck.
I don't know if we have a float that we could run on.
It is
The dump truck is a lot more exciting.
approximately 2-mile walk, a little less than 2 miles.
Get the back of the truck.
If this is an event that we think is important, and we do think it's important to participate in every year, you will probably see us preparing things like ability for folks to ride next time. The other item I wanted to bring forward is the ribbon cutting for the Sweeney GNC facility is scheduled for February 10th at 11 a.m. 11 a.m. And it'll be a rather large event. You will get invitations shortly if you've not already received. That's it for my executive report.
Okay, moving on to committee reports. The executive committee met last week, January 4th. Those meeting minutes are in your packet for review. Moving on to long-range planning, Mr. Stevens.
We did not meet.
Okay.
I have nothing to report.
Moving on to finance committee.
Leslie and Miss Janice stay at, it's back up in there. And there's no lines or nothing leading to it. So they're gonna have to do a lot of work to get down those roads. That is what they were talking about this morning, that they're gonna try to address with us. And not only for us, we have our church, we have our community building, and we have some businesses that are affected by this. And we told them that in this day and time, water and sewer is unheard of. You know, those wells and sewer, because the septic tanks are failing. And that water is going nowhere but into your well. And so in this day and time, if you got water lines and you got sewer lines, we want some of it also.
That's right.
Because we have people down the street from us that have it and we do not.
And I'll try to answer your question, Mary.
Another thing, we got a... Anybody else ever sent me any letters?
Okay, the information we'll send you will include information that includes who you, but regardless of who you should contact to request your well.
Okay. I think this is, I have this right here, and you can look at it and tell me if that is it. Who she can start off with for Kimars.
I haven't seen this, so I can't, I don't know what number this is, but.
That's not,
Yeah, well, this is.
That's what Riverwatch gave me for Kimball.
Riverwatch gave this to you? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, so that is the number you can call that she has.
So you can have that.
Okay, we have a new farmer supply store coming right across from 3401 Gladiator Drive.
Okay.
Now watch how quick some water get over.
Well,
But
the
we can't-
water will only be there
And sewer.
if there's a line to provide it. That's,
I used to live at 3401.
I don't know one way or the other whether that area has it.
Do we have anybody addressing the health issues?
Yeah, yeah.
By folks who's been affected by this sewer, water, health issues? Have
We
anybody-
had Riverwatch to come out and test many of the wells. We had people to sign up for them, and they have tested positive for bacteria. And that's why in the meeting they were talking about someone from the health department being involved.
That's right.
And we have submitted that information over to you guys.
Right.
And Riverwatch has also got in contact with them.
But I think from the health department, we really need a scientific explanation.
Right.
Between the 5 and 10, right, levels, right, what are the health impacts of that? We really need that data. And that has been real, like, cloudy as far as somebody definitively, like, saying that these are the ways that you will be impacted if it reaches over 8 or if it reaches
You're
close to
talking about
10.
from a health perspective?
Yes.
Yeah, and so that would likely need to come from the state, DHHS.
Yes.
You know, and you may start at the county health department.
Yeah. Now, I was involved in a meeting with Riverwatch, and they had some people that had been tested for a health reason, and a lot of health concerns were presented at that meeting, and the levels were out the roof.
Right.
And our community was never involved in that. No one never contacted us, and I was like, how did this many people, it was like 218 of them, get involved in that type of testing for their health?
Is that was something that was done by the NC State University?
It was.
Right, and I know they did some outreach. I don't know why it didn't get to you.
Yeah, because I mean, we were right there. We were right on the river.
But you know Dana.
Yes, I talked with
She
Dana.
should be able to put you in touch with the people who are involved.
Right.
Tuesday?
Tuesday.
Yes.
Tuesday. And as soon as I can, I will be getting up with everybody, and we will be having a meeting at our community building. And if there's someone that want us to contact them, let us get their number right now, and we will contact you and have you present at that meeting.
And please tell me if this is not appropriate, but if you have questions, I would say go through Ms. Gaines. Is that okay?
Yes, and most of them know me.
Right, and she's been in contact with Cammie.
Right.
And we will try to get you answers with the question answers.
And that way we can keep a record of everything and just make sure nobody's getting lost in the shuffle.
Okay. And thank y'all so much. We do appreciate y'all input.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time. Absolutely. Thank you.
No, septic systems. There's not. We don't not manage septic.
We don't do septic.